Hey buddy, if you are new to the channel, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. Now let's begin the story. I should have gone straight home after work. That thought has haunted me every single night since it happened. My name's Evan Mercer, I'm 29, and until that night, my life was as boring and predictable as anyone else's. I lived in Fairfield, Texas, a small town between Dallas and Houston that most people only know from the highway signs. I'd been working at the Costco off Interstate 45 for almost 5 years, mostly on night shifts. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills, and the health insurance was better than what most places offered. I never thought my job would be the reason I'd almost get killed. When you work nights at Costco, your body never really adjusts. People think it's just stocking shelves and scanning pallets. They don't see the parts where you're dragging a pallet jack across 200 feet of concrete at 3 a.m. or lifting boxes of bulk detergent that weigh more than some toddlers. Add in the fluorescent lights that buzz overhead like hornets, and you start to feel like a ghost. I had a routine. Get up around 3 p.m., choke down some leftovers, head to work by 4:30, clock in at 5, grind until 11 or midnight, depending on how messy the floor was after the rush. Drive home, heat something up, watch TV until I passed out, wake up and do it again. It wasn't a life exactly, more like a cycle. My mom used to tell me, "Evan, you're too young to settle into misery." But she lived 3 states away, and phone calls weren't enough to pull me out of it. My coworkers were the only real people I saw regularly, and out of them, only 2 actually felt like friends. Maya Rodriguez, 24, funny, sharp-tongued, and the kind of person who could make folding clothes in the returns department feel like a party. Caleb Turner, 31, quiet but solid. He'd been through a rough divorce and somehow turned into our unofficial big brother. The 3 of us usually clocked out around the same time. We'd stand in the parking lot, bitch about customers, laugh about stupid things we'd seen, then go our separate ways. That night, though, things went differently. It was a Friday in July. Inventory week. If you've never worked retail during inventory, you can't imagine the hell it is. Every item in the warehouse has to be counted, scanned, and double-checked. By the time the last customer was shoved out at 10:55 p.m., my back felt like it had been split open with a crowbar. My right knee, badly tweaked during a jiu-jitsu sparring session 2 weeks earlier, was swollen and stiff. I wanted nothing but my bed. Then Maya leaned against her register, her braids sticking to the sweat on her neck, and said, "Waffle stop. I'm buying pie." "You in?" Caleb groaned, rubbing his eyes. "Pie? At midnight?" "Yeah, pie at midnight," she shot back. "It's tradition after inventory. I'm not eating it alone." I hesitated, pulling at the collar of my sweat-soaked Costco polo. "I don't know, guys, I'm wrecked." "Come on," Maya nudged me with her elbow. "You'll go home, microwave spaghetti, and stare at your wall. Live a little." She wasn't wrong. Caleb sighed. "Fine, but only because my ex-wife used to say, 'No good decisions are made at diners past midnight,' and I'm here to prove her wrong." I laughed despite myself. "All right, but Caleb's driving. My knee's shot." "Deal," he said, jingling his keys. We locked up, waved to the overnight stock crew, and stepped out into the Texas night. The heat was like walking into a hairdryer set on low, thick, oppressive, unending. The parking lot stretched wide and empty, the streetlights buzzing faintly. Something about the emptiness made the back of my neck prickle, but I told myself it was just exhaustion. We caravanned out to Harlow's Diner, a 24-hour place off the highway. It had been there since the 70s, chrome siding, neon sign buzzing, the smell of grease permanently baked into the walls. The kind of spot truckers loved and teenagers used to sneak into after football games. The bell over the door jingled when we walked in. The air smelled like bacon grease, syrup, and burnt coffee. The place was nearly empty, just a trucker hunched over eggs at the counter and a couple of older women whispering in a booth by the window. A waitress named Darlene, late 50s, tired smile, name tag shining, waved us to a booth near the center. "Y'all look beat," she said, sliding menus toward us. "You don't even know," Maya groaned. We ordered drinks. Maya got coffee, Caleb ordered a Coke, and I stuck with water. My stomach was in knots from exhaustion. For a little while it felt normal. Maya cracked jokes about customers hoarding paper towels like they were made of gold. Caleb told a story about a guy who tried to return a broken lawnmower covered in grass clippings. We laughed. And then the bell over the door jingled again. Two men walked in. Something about them didn't fit. Both wore heavy hoodies, one black, one dark gray. Hoods pulled low. In Texas, in July, at nearly midnight. The first was tall and skinny, his movements jerky, restless, like he couldn't hold still. The second was shorter, stockier, tattoos snaking up his neck. Their eyes were glassy, darting. Meth. That was my first thought. They passed our booth slowly, too slowly, their heads tilted just enough to look at Maya. I felt my stomach drop. They slid into the booth behind me, the vinyl squeaking under their weight. I couldn't see them without turning, but I could hear the clink of ice in a glass, the slow tap, tap, tap of fingers on Formica. I leaned forward, lowering my voice. Don't look now, but we've got company. Maya blinked. What do you mean? Two guys, hoodies, behind me. Caleb frowned. So? It's a diner. People eat. Yeah, I muttered. Except they're not eating. Darlene came by with our drinks, oblivious. The men hadn't touched menus. They just sat there whispering, staring. I risked a glance when she walked past. Two empty glasses of water, hands on the table, eyes fixed on us. The tall one's gaze was locked on Maya. The stocky one leaned back, grinning like he knew something we didn't. My skin crawled. We ate fast. Or at least Maya and Caleb did. I barely touched my food. I threw down cash, told Darlene to keep the change. My knee throbbed as I stood, making my limp obvious. That's when I saw it. The stocky guy lifted his hand slowly, pointed at me, then made a stabbing motion with two fingers. The tall one grinned wider. My blood ran cold. Let's go, I said, voice rough. We pushed out into the parking lot. The heat slammed into me, thick and suffocating. But it wasn't the weather making me sweat. Jess, get to your car, I barked, then corrected myself. Maya, your car. Now Caleb, start mine. Lock the doors. They stared at me. Something in my tone must have hit because they moved fast. Behind me, the diner door banged open. Footsteps quick, I turned. The two men were coming, hoodies up, faces twisted into something animal. One reached into his pocket. The other licked his lips. I planted my feet. My bad knee screamed. Hey, I shouted, voice cracking. Back the fuck off. For half a second, they froze. Then the tall one pulled something from his pocket. Metal glinted under the streetlight. A knife that was all I needed to see. Go, 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 I roared. Caleb yanked the driver's door open as I dove into the passenger side. Maya scrambled into the back. The car roared to life. The men sprinted after us, feet pounding asphalt. One shouted something I couldn't make out. The knife caught the glow of the diner sign. Tires screeched. We shot out of the lot engine, screaming. In the mirror, I saw them shrinking in the distance, still running, still shouting. No one said a word for miles, just the hum of the highway and the thunder of my heart. Finally, Maya whispered, "What the hell just happened?" No one answered. We didn't stop until we were halfway back to town. Caleb pulled into a gas station, hands shaking on the wheel. I fumbled with my phone, texted Maya. "You okay?" A bubble appeared. "Yeah, WTF was that?" I stared at the screen, hands trembling so badly I almost dropped the phone. The truth was simple. If I hadn't listened to my gut, if I hadn't noticed their eyes, their movements, their silence, we'd be dead. That thought still keeps me awake at night, because sometimes evil doesn't hide in shadows. Sometimes it walks into a diner, orders water, and waits. Story 2. I never thought one late-night grocery run would scar me for the rest of my life. At the time, I was 26 years old, living in Clearwater, Florida. Not the touristy postcard version with beaches and spring breakers, but the regular neighborhoods a few miles inland. The parts people don't really think about when they picture Florida. That was home. I shared a small apartment with my girlfriend, Emily. We weren't perfect, but we were trying. It was late March, sticky air even at night, the kind that clings to your skin and makes every errand feel heavier than it should. Earlier that evening, we'd been at a friend's apartment across town. Nothing wild, Just a handful of us eating pizza, watching a couple of old horror flicks, and catching up. By the time we left, it was just after 1:45 a.m. Emily was yawning in the passenger seat, her dark hair tied in a loose bun, hoodie pulled up halfway. She muttered, half asleep, "Babe, I'm starving." I laughed softly, hands on the wheel. "You ate half a pizza." "Yeah, like 5 hours ago," she shot back, rubbing her stomach. Truth is, I was starving too. We hadn't exactly been eating well lately. Money was tight, and with both of us working weird shifts, meals were usually whatever we could grab on the go. Emily worked at a vet clinic. I was managing a secondhand electronics store. Neither of us had what you'd call a healthy routine. Most places were closed that late, but I remembered something. A buddy at work had told me about the Costco nearby, how they had this weird after-hours self-checkout section that was open 24/7. Not the whole warehouse, just a corner of it with some essentials. Frozen food, drinks, snacks, household stuff. It was meant for night shift workers, cops, EMTs, people like that. I mentioned it, and Emily perked up. "Seriously? At this hour?" "Yeah," I said. "We could grab some food, maybe coffee pods too." She smirked. "Costco run at 2 in the morning. Sounds like a vibe." The drive there was quiet, almost too quiet. Clearwater isn't New York. By 2 a.m., the streets feel abandoned, like a movie set after the crew packed up. Streetlights blinked yellow over empty intersections. We passed one or two cars at most, their headlights cutting briefly across our windshield before disappearing again. By the time we pulled into the Costco lot, it was nearly deserted. A few scattered cars sat in the far rows, including a beat-up minivan and a semi idling near the loading docks. The tall lampposts cast harsh cones of white light, leaving strange shadows stretching across the asphalt. Emily hugged herself. "This is creepy." "Yeah," I admitted. "Feels like we're not supposed to be here." Inside, the store was even eerier. Only a section of the warehouse was lit, the rest swallowed in semi-darkness. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, bouncing off the polished concrete floors. The air was cool, almost too cool, like they were overcompensating with the AC. A security guard sat slouched near the entrance, scrolling his phone. He barely looked up when we walked past. Emily whispered, "Great, so if we get murdered in here, he'll be tick-tocking through it." I snorted. "Don't start." We grabbed a cart and headed toward the refrigerated section. That's when I noticed him. A man, maybe late 20s, stood at the far end of the aisle. He was pacing, sharp, jittery movements, his hands clenched tight at his sides. His jaw moved in quick, grinding motions, and even from 20 feet away, I could see the tendons in his neck straining. I slowed, cart halfway down the aisle. Emily followed my gaze. "What's wrong?" "Nothing," I whispered, forcing myself to keep moving. "Just, guy looks spun out." We moved on, but my chest tightened. I told myself it was nothing. People act weird in 24-hour stores all the time. Then I saw her, a woman, maybe the same age, stormed past the end of the next aisle. Her hair was tangled, her sweatshirt sleeves pulled over her hands as she tugged at them like they were choking her. She muttered to herself, loud enough to catch bits of profanity. Her eyes were wide, darting in quick, jerky movements. Emily leaned close and whispered, "Yikes. Meth?" "Probably," I said, though my throat felt dry. We tried to focus on shopping. Frozen meals, chips, sparkling water. Nothing fancy, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. At the self-checkout, Emily scanned while I bagged. That's when I saw him again, the pacing man. Only this time he was closer, just a few feet away. And he wasn't pacing anymore. He was staring, directly at me, unblinking. My pulse spiked. I kept my head down, swiping items, but every nerve screamed that his eyes were burning holes into me. Emily leaned in. "Why is he looking at us?" "Don't know," I muttered. "Just hurry." We finished and headed for the exit. The guard didn't look up from his phone. The automatic doors slid open with a low hiss, and the night air hit me like a wall. For a brief second, I felt relief. We were out. Done. Then I heard footsteps. Heavy. Fast. I turned. He was coming toward us. The man from the aisle. His girlfriend a step behind, her face twisted with rage. Get in the car, I hissed. Emily didn't argue. She dove into the passenger seat as I fumbled with the keys, heart pounding. I'd barely pulled the door shut when, bang, bang, bang! He slammed his fist against my window so hard the glass rattled. His voice was raw, ragged, like an animal's. Give it back! You stole her wallet! What? I shouted, cracking the window an inch. I don't have anything. Check my hands. I didn't take anything. Bullshit, he roared. You took it off the counter. Hand it over or I'll smash this fucking window. Emily's voice trembled. We don't have your wallet. His girlfriend circled the car like a predator, peering in through the windows. You took it when she wasn't looking. We saw you. Hand it back or you're dead. Emily shouted. We didn't take shit. Back off. The man's eyes darted wildly. His chest heaved. Then his face twisted into a snarl. Fine. If you won't give hers back, I'll take yours instead. Something snapped in me. I rolled the window up and threw the car into reverse. He slammed both hands onto the hood, screaming. I floored it backward, swerving out of the spot. He stumbled, then bolted for a dark SUV parked a few rows over. His girlfriend dove into the passenger side. A second later, headlights blazed to life. Go! Go! Emily screamed. I didn't need telling. I tore out of the lot, tires squealing. My heart hammered so hard it hurt. For a half-mile silence. Just the hum of the engine, my shaky breathing. Then headlights filled the rear view. Bright. Fast. Oh my God, Emily whispered. It's them. The SUV flew up behind us, swerving wildly, horn blaring. High beams flashed on and off, searing my vision. They're trying to ram us, Emily yelled. Hold on, I muttered, gripping the wheel so tight my knuckles whitened. I cut sharp turns, ran lights, anything to lose them. But every time I thought I'd shaken them, those headlights came screaming back into view. Closer, louder. His voice echoed in my head, like it was burned into me. Give it back or die. Give it back or die. Then I saw it, the glowing blue sign of the Clearwater Police Department. I swerved into the lot so fast the tires screeched. The SUV followed. My stomach dropped. He wasn't afraid of cops. I slammed the car into park, locked the doors, grabbed my phone. My fingers shook so hard I barely hit 911. Before I could say a word, the man was there again, pounding on the window. Spittle flew from his mouth. Open the door, you bitch! Hand it over! I'm on the phone with the cops right now, I screamed, tears burning down my face. They're coming out. You're done. For a split second, his expression shifted. Fear, realization. He glanced at the building, then back at me. His jaw clenched. Then he spun, dove into the SUV, and tore out of the lot with his girlfriend screaming from the passenger seat. I collapsed against the wheel, sobbing. Emily grabbed my hand. It's okay. We're okay. The cops came out minutes later, calm as if this was routine. They took our statements, asked for descriptions. Without a plate, there wasn't much they could do. One officer even asked if I'd been drinking, like maybe I was the problem. That stung. By the time we got home, the sky was turning pale with dawn. The groceries sat forgotten. My hands trembled unlocking the door. To this day, I don't know if they were running a scam or if the drugs had fried their brains so badly they really believed we'd stolen something. All I know is this: I've never gone back to Costco after midnight, and I never will. Story 3. I should have gone straight home after work. That thought has stayed with me ever since, looping in the back of my head like an old record with a scratch. But when you're 24, tired, and just trying to keep up with life, you don't think about what-ifs. My name's Rachel Morgan, and back in the winter of 2019, I was living in Dayton, Ohio, a mid-sized city that's busy enough to feel alive, but not so big you can disappear into it. At the time, I was working as a shift lead at a small electronics repair shop near the university, the kind of place where students dragged in cracked phones and professors came in panicked with fried laptops. It wasn't my dream job. Far from it. I'd studied graphic design, but the job market wasn't kind, and fixing motherboards paid better than unpaid internships. So I told myself it was temporary. Rent, groceries, gas, that's all that mattered. My schedule was brutal. Some weeks I opened, some weeks I closed. On Fridays, it was always chaos. People needed their devices before the weekend. That particular Friday, I didn't clock out until almost 8 p.m. Stomach growling, back aching, brain fried. I should have just gone home, heated up leftovers, passed out in front of Netflix. But my fridge was basically empty. Half a carton of milk, some wilting lettuce, and expired yogurt. I figured I'd swing by Costco, grab enough to last the week, and maybe treat myself to a rotisserie chicken. Comfort food. Costco was my safe place in a weird way. I loved the wide aisles, the fluorescent hum, the rhythm of loading bulk groceries into a cart. It felt productive, organized, calming compared to the chaos of tech repairs and impatient customers. By the time I pulled into the parking lot, it was around 8:30 p.m. The store closed at 9:30, so I had an hour. The air was cold, late winter sharp, the kind of cold that makes your breath look like smoke. The lot lights buzzed overhead, casting yellow halos over rows of parked cars. I parked in the third row, near a cart corral, zipped my coat, and grabbed a cart. My routine was automatic: produce first, then dairy, frozen foods, snacks. A quiet Friday night errand. At least that's how it should have been. I first noticed him near the meat section. I was tossing a family pack of chicken breasts into my cart when I realized someone was standing a little too still at the end of the aisle. He wasn't shopping. No cart, no basket, no list in his hand. Just standing there, watching. He was older, maybe late 50s, early 60s. He wore a blue windbreaker and a gray knit beanie pulled low. His face was weathered, sharp in the way that comes from years of squinting against the cold or smoking too much. When I looked up, he gave me a smile, too polite, too deliberate. I offered a quick half smile back and moved on, reminding myself not to overthink it. People glance at each other in stores all the time. But when I turned into the bottled water aisle, there he was again. Same aisle this time, about 15 feet away, pretending to read a label. Only his eyes weren't on the shelf. They were on me. Something in my stomach tightened. He spoke before I could escape. "Cold night, huh?" His voice was rough, gravelly, like he hadn't used it in hours. "Yeah," I said quickly, forcing a smile. "Pretty cold." I pushed my cart further down, pretending to be busy comparing prices. My pulse ticked faster. He didn't follow immediately. That almost made it worse, like he was timing himself, pacing me. By the time I reached the snack aisle, my nerves were frayed. And there he was again, leaning on a shelf as though he'd been waiting. "You local?" he asked, his tone casual but his eyes too sharp. Yeah," I said, pretending not to care. "Why?" He shrugged. "You look familiar. You work around here?" "No," I lied, "just visiting." The way he smiled at that, slow, knowing, made my skin crawl. I abandoned the snack aisle and headed for the front. I had enough groceries. My cart was heavy, my hands shaky on the handle. When I glanced over my shoulder, I saw him again, following, not close, but close enough, 3 aisles back. At the register, the cashier, a kid barely out of high school, noticed my trembling hands. "You okay?" he asked, scanning my items. "Yeah, just tired." Another lie. He didn't press. I bagged my groceries fast, swiping my card with sweaty palms. The glass doors slid open and the cold air slapped me in the face. The parking lot was quieter now. A few cars pulling out, taillights glowing red in the dark. My car was near the third row. Too far. I told myself not to look back, just to walk, steady and normal. But halfway to my car, I heard it. Boots crunching on gravel. I turned. It was him. Blue jacket, gray beanie, hands shoved in pockets. Walking faster now. My chest tightened. I quickened my pace, cart rattling against the uneven asphalt. My gloves made it hard to grab my keys. I ditched the cart by my bumper, fumbling, heart hammering. "Hey!" His voice came closer than I expected. I whipped around. He was 10 feet away. "You dropped something," he said, holding out an empty hand. "No, I didn't," I snapped, yanking the door open. "Don't be like that," he murmured, disappointment laced in his voice. I slammed the door and hit the lock just as he reached my bumper. My hands shook so hard I nearly dropped the keys again. That's when he smiled, a deliberate, slow smile that didn't reach his eyes. He raised his knuckles and tapped gently against the glass. "Pretty girl like you shouldn't walk alone at night." I floored it. Tires squealed as I shot out of the lot, nearly clipping a stray shopping cart. In the rearview mirror, he was still standing there, hand raised like he was about to knock again. I didn't drive straight home. I circled through side streets for 20 minutes, heart pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. When I finally pulled into my apartment complex, I parked 2 buildings away, just in case. That night I barely slept. Every creak in the walls felt like footsteps. Every shadow outside my window felt like him. The next day around noon, my phone buzzed. It was Megan, my coworker. "Rachel," she said, her voice low. "Some old guy's been coming by all morning asking for you. Says he knows you from Costco." My stomach dropped. "What did you tell him?" "Nothing. Just that you weren't here. But he's weird. Came in 3 times already." I left work early, scanning every car on the way to mine. For a week, I changed everything. Different parking spots, different routes, friends walking me out at night. Eventually, Megan told me the man stopped showing up. I never saw him again. Not at Costco, not on the street, not anywhere. And somehow that scares me even more. Because if he's still out there, still thinking about me, I wouldn't know. Story 4. I was 7 years old the first time I learned that being surrounded by people doesn't always mean you're safe. That Tuesday in June started like any other in Willow Creek, a mid-sized town in Ohio where my family lived. Summers there were humid, the kind that pressed on your skin until you felt sticky. School had just let out for the year, and I was in that giddy headspace kids get when they realize 3 months of freedom stretch ahead like an endless field. My mom, Claire, picked me up from the elementary aftercare program. I still remember how she looked that day. Her auburn hair was tied back in a messy bun, a pair of drugstore sunglasses perched crooked on top of her head. She had that tired smile parents get, half warmth, half exhaustion. "Hey, Jake," she said as I climbed into the back seat, tossing my backpack onto the floorboard. "We need to make a quick stop at Costco before we head home. That okay with you?" Costco. At 7 years old, I thought that store was a palace. Endless aisles, towering stacks of things I could barely see the tops of, free samples that felt like treasure hunts. For a kid, it was heaven. "Yeah," I grinned, buckling myself in. "Can we look at the books?" "We'll see," she said, smirking through the rearview mirror. "Depends how quick we get through groceries." The drive only took about 10 minutes, but I can still see the way the late afternoon sun glared off every windshield in the parking lot. Rows upon rows of cars shimmered like mirrors. My mom muttered under her breath as she pulled into a far-off spot. "Everyone decided to shop today, huh?" I hopped out eagerly, latching onto her hand. She squeezed mine gently. "Don't let go, okay? This place is huge." "I won't," I promised, bouncing a little on my sneakers. The sliding doors whooshed open, and a blast of cool air rushed over us. I breathed in deep. It smelled like polish, coffee, and fresh-baked bread. Carts clanged together in an offbeat rhythm, the buzz of chatter mixing with distant announcements over the PA. Somewhere, a kid was crying. Mom grabbed a cart and we pushed forward into the maze. To my 7-year-old eyes, it really was another world. Towers of cereal boxes, refrigerators that hummed like sleeping beasts, televisions bigger than I was, and rows of shiny electronics glowing under fluorescent lights. Every few minutes, I tugged on Mom's sleeve. "Can we go see the toys?" "In a minute, buddy. Let me just grab some soup for dinner." We turned into the instant food aisle. That's when it happened. Mom let go of my hand, just for a second. She needed both arms to reach across the shelf for a multi-pack of soup. And in that second, I noticed him. A man. He stood at the far end of the aisle at first, pretending to study a row of pasta. He had on a faded windbreaker zipped all the way up to his neck, even though it was hot outside. His beard was patchy, uneven, like he'd forgotten how to shave. When his eyes landed on me, something inside me went cold. He started walking toward me. Slow at first, then quicker. He bent slightly so his face was closer to mine, flashing a smile that never reached his eyes. His voice came out low, too smooth, like he was rehearsing friendliness. "Hey, buddy, want to check out the toy section with me?" My heart thudded so hard it almost hurt. I was only 7, but I wasn't clueless. Mom had drilled it into me. Don't talk to strangers. Don't ever go anywhere with them. I shook my head quickly, glancing toward Mom, who was still comparing labels. Come on, he whispered, his voice dropping even lower. Just for a second. I'll show you something cool. His eyes flicked toward the end of the aisle, restless like he was checking if anyone was watching. No, I whispered. Then louder, Mom! The sound startled him. He straightened up quickly, shoved his hands into his pockets, and walked away, vanishing into the next aisle. When Mom turned back, I was clinging to her hand so tight my knuckles ached. She didn't notice. She was busy tossing the soup into the cart. I didn't tell her. Not then. Part of me worried she'd think I'd wandered, that it was my fault, so I stayed quiet. We shopped for another half hour. She even bought me a book as a treat. By the time we reached the checkout line, I'd almost convinced myself I'd imagined it, almost. But then, just as we were unloading groceries onto the conveyor belt, I tugged on Mom's sleeve. Mom, I gotta use the bathroom. She sighed but smiled. Okay, be quick. I'll be right here in line. See the hallway back there? That's where it is. I nodded and darted off. The corridor stretched long and dim compared to the bright, busy aisles. My sneakers squeaked softly against the polished floor. The sounds of carts and chatter faded with each step. Ahead, the bathroom doors loomed. I was only a few feet away when it happened. A rough hand clamped over my mouth, cutting off my breath. Another hand seized my wrist like a vice, yanking me backward into the shadow between two supply doors. It was him. The man from the aisle. His grip was iron. His palm pressed so hard against my mouth I could taste salt and dirt. His breath was sour, hot against my ear. Stay quiet, he hissed. It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you. It didn't sound okay. It sounded like the scariest thing I'd ever heard. Panic exploded inside me. I kicked, twisted, tears stinging my eyes. He dragged me further into the shadows, away from the bathroom entrance. My muffled cries filled my ears. His eyes, wild, darting everywhere, looked like they belonged to a trapped animal. Instinct took over. I bit him, hard. My teeth sank into the fleshy part of his hand until I tasted something metallic. Blood. He howled, jerking his hand back. That was my chance. I sucked in the biggest breath my lungs could hold and screamed. Mom! The sound tore through the quiet hallway, echoing loud enough to shake me. Two employees stocking shelves nearby heard it and came running. The man shoved me to the ground and bolted down the corridor, vanishing into the chaos of shoppers. I sobbed as the employees knelt beside me asking if I was hurt. My mom arrived seconds later, panic etched deep in her face. She dropped everything from the cart and pulled me into her arms, crying harder than I'd ever seen. Security locked the exits, checked the cameras, called the police. On the footage, they saw him. He'd been wandering the store for over an hour, never buying anything, lurking near the toys, near the children's books, watching, always watching, and glancing up at the cameras like he hated being seen. But in the chaos, he slipped away before anyone could catch him. He was never found. That was over 20 years ago. I'm in my 30s now, but every time I step into a big store, especially when I see those long, empty hallways leading to the bathrooms, my chest tightens. I remember the roughness of his hand, the smell of his skin, the sound of his whisper. And when I take my niece shopping, I never, ever let go of her hand, because I know what almost happened when I was 7, and I still wonder what would have happened if I hadn't screamed. Story 5, I never thought a warehouse job would change the way I look at people or doors. When I first signed up for the overnight shift at Costco, I thought I'd hit some sort of quiet jackpot. My name's Daniel Harper, and back in 2016, I was 23 years old, just a year out of community college, and already drowning in bills. Rent in Springfield, Ohio wasn't bad, but between my car loan, my mom's medical expenses, and my part-time income from a hardware store, I was barely keeping up. So when my buddy Marcus told me about a Costco distribution center hiring for the night shift, I jumped on it. Dude, it's cake, Marcus said, leaning across the table at Applebee's, where we were grabbing cheap beers. No customers, no Karens. You just scan boxes, stock aisles, listen to music if you're slick. Plus, you'll have your days free. It's perfect for people who don't sleep like us. I laughed. So I just get paid to move boxes in the dark? Sounds like prison labor. Bro, it's better than retail. And you get benefits after 3 months. I'm telling you, it's steady. Do it. And I did. Within a week, I had the red vest, the badge, and the graveyard schedule. 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., Sunday through Thursday. At first, it was exactly what Marcus promised. The warehouse was massive, 12 aisles wide, concrete floors polished slick from forklift wheels, and ceilings so high they vanished into shadows. Overnight, it felt like a different world. There were usually 6 of us on shift. Me, Marcus, Alicia, tiny but tough, could lift a case of bottled water like it was nothing. Rick, the old-timer who'd been there 15 years. Jamie, security, always bored, always scrolling his phone. And Tom, our shift lead. We joked on walkie-talkies. We raced pallet jacks when no cameras were pointed our way. We even played music low through one shared speaker tucked on a shelf. The hum of the fluorescent lights overhead, the beeping scanners, the occasional crash of shrink wrap tearing. Those noises became our soundtrack. For a while, it was almost calming, predictable, safe. But that was before the night I realized the scariest thing in a warehouse isn't the silence or the shadows or even the rats. It's the people who don't belong there. It was a Tuesday in early November. I remember because the cold had just started to bite. Even inside the warehouse, you could feel it leaking in from the loading bays. That night, Tom split us up. Marcus, you and Rick, aisles 4 through 6. Alicia, help Daniel in bulk snacks and cleaning. I'll cover the front. Jamie, do your rounds. And for God's sake, don't prop the doors. He said that last part while glaring at Marcus, who'd gotten caught smoking out back the week before. The security alarms on the emergency exits were supposed to trip if they opened, but half the time the system glitched. Management had chewed us out already. I grabbed my scanner and nodded at Alicia. Guess it's you and me, she smirked. Try not to slow me down, rookie. We split tasks. She restocked soda flats. I took paper towels and bleach wipes. I slipped in one earbud. Volume low, just enough to keep me company. About 20 minutes in, I noticed something odd. At the far end near Dock 3, one of the emergency doors wasn't fully closed, just cracked, maybe 2 inches, enough for a sliver of yellow light from the parking lot to spill in. I frowned. Those doors were supposed to be shut tight. Hey, Alicia, I called. You see that? She looked up from her cart. Probably Marcus being lazy again. Yeah, but it's freezing back here, and that door's not supposed to be open. She shrugged. Then close it. So I walked down the concrete corridor toward it, boots echoing in the quiet. As I got closer, a cold draft brushed my face. That's when I saw him, a man, standing at the far end of the corridor, just beyond the emergency door. At first I thought it was a shadow, but then I saw the outline. Messy hair, long arms, slouched posture. He stood completely still, head tilted slightly watching. My throat tightened. Hey man, employee's only back here. I called, trying to sound confident. No answer. No movement. Yo, you can't be back here. Doors for staff. Still nothing, just staring. Something about the way he stood, too still, too deliberate, made the hairs on my arms rise. My mind scrambled for explanations. A homeless guy, maybe, looking for warmth, or a drunk delivery driver. But why wasn't he saying anything? I swallowed hard and reached for my radio. The second my hand touched it, the man bolted. Not toward the door, into the warehouse, sprinting down a side corridor so fast it barely looked human. Shit, I shouted, heart hammering. I snatched a flashlight from a shelf and ran after him. But when I reached the intersection of aisles, he was gone. Just silence, endless rows of shelves, the smell of cardboard and plastic. I wanted to believe he slipped out the emergency door, but my gut told me otherwise. He was still inside. I radioed Jamie. Security, Dock 3. Got a guy inside. Checked the door. It's cracked. Didn't see him leave. Jamie's voice crackled back, lazy as ever. Copy. I'll sweep it. He showed up 5 minutes later with his flashlight, checked the exits, shrugged. Nothing. Door's locked now. No sign of forced entry. Probably your imagination. My imagination doesn't sprint down aisles, I snapped. Look, man, it's 2 a.m. Warehouse plays tricks on you. Just finish your work. So I tried, but my nerves were fried. Every noise made me flinch. Every shadow felt heavier. About 15 minutes later, while I was stocking paper towels, I felt something wet hit the back of my neck. I froze. At first I thought it was condensation, but Costco ceilings don't leak. I reached back. My fingers came away slick. And then I heard it, a faint shuffle above me. I tilted my flashlight up and saw him, perched on top of the shelving like a spider, crouched low, eyes wide, unblinking. His mouth hung open, a string of saliva dangling. My breath caught in my throat. "What the hell?" I whispered. The shelf trembled as he shifted. Then he lunged. I screamed, dropping my radio, bolting down the aisle as boxes crashed behind me. "Security! Back dock now!" I yelled into the walkie, praying it still transmitted. I didn't stop running until I burst into the main aisle, light flooding over me. My chest burned. My hands shook. By the time Jamie and Tom showed up, the man was gone. The next afternoon, Tom called me in early. "Harper, come to the office," he said, face pale. Inside, Jamie was waiting with the security manager. They didn't speak, just played the footage. On screen, I saw myself working in bulk supplies. In the background, near the emergency door, he was there. The man, standing still for nearly an hour, barely moving, sometimes pushing the door open an inch, then pulling it back, testing it. Then clear as day, he crawled up the shelving, effortless, like he'd done it before. And he stayed there, watching me, drooling on me. The footage cut off when I ran screaming. They froze the frame on his face. His eyes were too wide, his mouth twisted open in a grin that didn't look right. The police said it was probably a transient who slipped in during the day, but none of the cameras ever caught him leaving. Not once. I transferred to another store 2 weeks later. To this day, I still work nights, but never in a building that big, that empty, that silent. And every time I pass an emergency door, I check it twice, because sometimes the thing you fear most isn't outside. It's already inside. Story 6, I was 29 the year it happened, living in a place I thought I'd never leave. Harrison, Ohio. If you've never been there, don't bother looking it up. It's not much more than a cluster of neighborhoods pressed up against the state line, with strip malls, chain restaurants, and one massive Costco that people drove in from miles around to shop at. My life at that point was fine. Not great, not terrible. I'd graduated college with a degree in communications, landed a job at an insurance company in downtown Cincinnati, and worked a steady but soul-sucking 9 to 5. Most days I'd sit in my cubicle staring at spreadsheets that blurred together, surrounded by the faint stench of microwave lunches and industrial carpet that had soaked up 20 years of spilled coffee. The truth was, I was lonely. My friends had moved away for better jobs. My last relationship had fizzled out 8 months prior, and I had fallen into that rhythm of work, gym, grocery store, home. Repeat. It was on a Friday evening in late November that I decided to stop at Costco after work. I didn't love going there during peak hours. Families swarming the aisles, kids running wild, couples blocking the path with carts full of bulk snacks. But my fridge was empty and payday had just hit. Besides, Mom had texted earlier that week, "Don't forget to stock up on water. They're saying the storm next week could be bad." That was Mom, always catastrophizing the weather, as though every snow flurry was the apocalypse. By the time I pulled into the Costco lot, the sky was already dark. November nights in Ohio have that damp chill that seeps through your coat. The lot was jammed with SUVs and minivans. Rows of cars glistened under the harsh, yellow floodlights. I parked far back, killed the engine, and sat for a second staring at my phone. My sister Jenna had texted, "You coming over for dinner Sunday?" "Yeah," I typed back. "I'll bring dessert." I shoved the phone in my pocket, grabbed my reusable bags from the passenger seat, and headed inside. The sliding glass doors opened with a mechanical hiss, washing me in the familiar warmth. The smell of baked bread, rotisserie chicken, and strong coffee from the food court. Families bustled around me, voices overlapping. A little girl tugged at her mom's sleeve, yelling, "Samples! Samples!" A couple stood by the TVs arguing about screen sizes. Someone laughed too loud near the bakery. It was chaos, but safe chaos. Bright, ordinary, suburban chaos. I didn't know yet that it was the last time I'd ever feel safe in that store. Costco had always been part of my life. Growing up, Mom dragged Jenna and me there every other Saturday. We'd ride in the oversized carts, beg for pizza slices, fight over who got the last churro. To me, Costco wasn't just a store. It was the backdrop of childhood errands, the place where things were predictable, almost comforting. Maybe that's why what happened hit me so hard. Because horror, real horror, doesn't strike in abandoned houses or creepy forests. It finds you where you're comfortable, where you least expect it. I grabbed a cart and started down the main aisle, pulling out my list: water, coffee, chicken, frozen veggies. I just turned toward produce when I noticed him. Tall, maybe 6 feet 3 inches. Wearing a gray hoodie with the hood pulled up. His cart was empty, and he was pushing it too slowly, almost dragging it. Nothing unusual about a guy in a hoodie, I told myself. People shop weird all the time, but something about the way he moved made my skin prickle. His head was angled down, as if he didn't want anyone to see his face. I turned into produce, grabbed a bag of apples. When I looked up, he was at the end of the aisle, just standing there. I brushed it off. Big store, people cross paths. But then it happened again. Dairy, frozen foods, paper goods. Wherever I went, he appeared, always with that same empty cart. When I reached the coffee section, I called Jenna. I just needed a normal voice to ground me. "Hey," she answered. "You alive?" "Barely. Long day. I'm at Costco now." "Oh God, Costco on a Friday? You're braver than me." I laughed, but my eyes flicked over my shoulder. The man was standing near the end cap, pretending to look at coffee beans. "Yeah, brave," I muttered. "You sound weird. Everything okay?" "Yeah, just tired." I lied. 40 minutes later, I had my haul. I checked out, loaded the bags into my SUV, and was about to return my cart when I saw him again. Standing a few rows away, hoodie still up, empty cart, pretending to look at his phone. My stomach tightened. I shoved the cart into the corral, climbed into the car, locked the doors. By the time I looked back up, he was gone. I exhaled hard, started the car, and pulled out. That's when headlights flared 2 rows behind me. A gray sedan. At first, I told myself it was nothing, just another shopper leaving. But every turn I took out of the lot, the gray car mirrored. 10 minutes later, he was still behind me. I switched lanes randomly. So did he. My hands gripped the wheel until my knuckles turned white. Finally, I spotted the well-lit Shell station up ahead. I pulled in fast, parked near the entrance, and ran inside, pretending to browse candy. Through the glass, I saw the gray sedan crawl past. Slow, watching, then vanish into the night. I waited 10 minutes before leaving. When I finally got home, my hands were still shaking. I locked every door and window, slept maybe 3 hours. Life went on. Work, gym, home. I almost convinced myself I'd imagined it. Just a weird guy, just a coincidence. Until the next Friday. I needed groceries again. Against my better judgment, I went back to Costco. And the second I walked in, I saw him. Same hoodie, same empty cart. Standing by the entrance like he'd been waiting. My throat went dry. I grabbed a cart, tried to act normal. My mind raced. Coincidence? Or had he been coming here every night hoping I'd return? Every aisle I turned, he was there, closer this time. By 8:30, the crowd thinned. Closing time was near. The once bustling store grew quiet, and he was still there. I made a mistake. I thought I could lose him in the freezer section. The aisle was empty, humming with the roar of coolers. My breath fogged in the icy air. Then, footsteps. I spun. He was there, just a few feet away. "Can I help you?" My voice cracked. He didn't answer, just breathed. Then low, almost too quiet to hear. "You shouldn't have left that night." My blood turned to ice. "What?" A thin smile spread beneath the shadow of his hood. His hand slipped into his hoodie pocket. Instinct took over. I shoved my cart hard into him and bolted. I sprinted down the aisle, sneakers squealing on polished floors. "Help!" My voice echoed through the cavernous warehouse. Employees turned, startled, but by the time anyone reacted, I'd burst through self-checkout toward the vestibule. A hand clamped my shoulder. I whipped around, ready to fight. It was a security guard, wide-eyed. "What's going on?" I spun back toward the store. The man in the hoodie was gone. Police arrived. I gave a statement, hands trembling. They pulled the security footage, and here's where the nightmare deepened. "There's no one following you," the officer said gently. "The cameras show you running, alone." I stared at him, numb. "That's not possible." He was right there. The officer gave me a look I'll never forget, a mix of pity and doubt. I went home that night feeling like I was losing my mind. But I know what I saw. And sometimes, even now, years later, when I'm in a store alone, I still feel it. The weight of unseen eyes in the aisles, the sound of slow footsteps behind me, waiting, watching, because some shadows don't stay in the dark. They follow you home. Story 7. I never imagined something as ordinary as grabbing a slice of pizza would leave me with a memory I still can't talk about without my chest tightening. It was the summer of 2019, one of those in-between times in life where everything feels both wide open and terrifyingly uncertain. I had just finished high school in Louisville, Kentucky. My two closest friends, Ryan and Chris, and I had been glued together for years. Basketball games in Ryan's driveway until midnight, late-night drives with fast food wrappers piling up in the back seat, all the dumb stuff you do when you feel invincible, and the real world hasn't quite settled on your shoulders yet. But graduation hit us hard in a way I didn't expect. Everyone around us seemed to know exactly where they were headed. Ryan had a scholarship lined up at Ohio State. Chris was talking about enlisting in the Navy. And me? I had no clue. No college plans, no job lined up, just a diploma sitting on my dresser and a knot in my stomach I couldn't shake. Maybe that's why we made the pact. Stay active, stay together, and keep the summer from swallowing us whole. Every morning we met at this small local gym in a strip mall off Preston Highway. It wasn't anything fancy. Rusty dumbbells, treadmills that squeaked when you ran too fast, and a vending machine that always ate your dollar. But it was ours. We built a routine. Wake up early, blast a playlist that bounced between Travis Scott and classic rock, push each other to lift heavier or run farther. The gym smelled like rubber mats and sweat, and somehow that felt comforting. Afterward, we'd usually cool down with smoothies or drive out to this greasy spoon diner for pancakes. But that one Friday afternoon in late July, Ryan had a different idea. We'd just finished a brutal leg day, drenched in sweat and too sore to laugh at the dumb jokes Chris kept making. Ryan threw his towel into his bag and said, "Hey, you guys ever had Costco pizza?" Chris raised an eyebrow. "Costco? Like the warehouse place?" "Yeah, man," Ryan said, dead serious. "I swear to God, it's the best pizza you'll ever have for $2. Huge slices, cheesy as hell. Way better than Domino's," I laughed. "Come on, it's a bulk store. Who even thinks about pizza there?" "I'm not kidding," Ryan pressed, wide-eyed like he'd just uncovered some holy secret. "My cousin took me once. It's legendary. We should hit it up today. Way better than smoothies." Chris smirked. "Don't you need a membership to even get inside?" "That's the thing," Ryan said, lowering his voice. "You don't. I've been twice. You just walk in behind somebody. Nobody checks." I gave him a look. "So your big plan is to sneak into a Costco for pizza?" Ryan grinned. "Exactly. You'll thank me." Chris shrugged, easygoing as always. "I mean, I'm starving, and I've got nothing better to do." I hesitated for a second. Something about the idea felt dumb, but also, it was summer. We were free, and honestly, the thought of doing something reckless, even if it was just for cheap pizza, felt like the kind of memory you'd laugh about years later. "Fine," I said, "but if we get kicked out, I'm telling them it was your idea." Ryan slapped my shoulder. "Deal." We piled into Ryan's old Ford Explorer, the kind of car that rattled every time it hit 60 miles per hour. The AC barely worked, so we rolled the windows down and let the hot Kentucky air whip around us while Post Malone blasted from the speakers. Chris leaned out the window, yelling lyrics into the wind, and Ryan kept drumming the steering wheel like we were heading to some epic concert instead of a giant box store. For a moment, life felt perfect. Dumb, reckless, free. When we pulled into the Costco lot on Shelbyville Road, the place was packed. SUVs and minivans everywhere. Families hauling carts piled high with bulk paper towels and crates of soda. I suddenly felt weirdly out of place walking in with nothing but my wallet and a gym bag slung over my shoulder. "You sure about this?" I muttered as we approached the entrance. Ryan shot me a look. "Relax. Just walk like you belong. Confidence, man." The automatic doors slid open, and the first wave of cold air hit us like heaven. For a second, it felt like we'd pulled it off. We slipped in behind a family with two little kids clinging to the sides of the cart. No one stopped us. "See?" Ryan whispered, grinning. "Easy." The food court was right ahead, and the smell hit me instantly. Cheese, bread, hot dogs, sizzling on rollers. My stomach growled. Chris nudged Ryan. "Okay, I'll admit it. Good call." But before we even made it to the line, a guy in a red Costco polo appeared out of nowhere. He looked mid-20s, clean shave, friendly smile plastered on his face. "Hey guys," he said casually. "Can I see your membership cards real quick?" Ryan froze. For the first time all summer, he didn't have that cocky grin. Yeah, about that. We were just hoping to grab some pizza. We don't have memberships." The guy tilted his head, but his smile never wavered. "Normally, we can't let people buy food without one. But it's no big deal. I can set you up with a guest pass for the day. Real easy. Just follow me." Chris and I exchanged a quick glance. His voice was calm, reassuring even. He sounded like he worked there. And we were three sweaty teenagers who just wanted pizza. Ryan jumped at it. "Sweet, thanks, man." We followed. At first, I thought he was taking us toward the customer service desk. But instead of turning left where the counters were, he kept leading us down the side of the store, past aisles stacked with TVs and bags of chips the size of my torso. Finally, he stopped at a gray door tucked away on the wall. He swiped a key card and pushed it open. The hallway beyond was narrow concrete walls, buzzing fluorescent lights overhead. "Just through here," he said with that same smile. Ryan, always first, stepped in without hesitation. Chris followed. My stomach twisted. Something about this didn't feel right, but the guy was standing there waiting, so I stepped inside too. The air in the hallway was different. Stale, humid, almost like a locker room that hadn't been cleaned in months. My sneakers squeaked on the concrete. I said carefully. "Where exactly are we going?" "Almost there," the man replied without looking back. We reached another door at the end of the hall. He opened it into pitch blackness. "Go ahead in. I'll get the lights." Ryan walked straight in. Chris hesitated but followed. My pulse hammered in my ears, but not wanting to be the coward, I stepped inside. The lights flicked on. My blood went cold. 5 men stood inside. Big guys, hoodies, ski masks. Their posture wasn't casual. It was predatory. None of them wore Costco uniforms. "What the hell?" Ryan started, but the man who led us here stepped in and shut the door behind him. He spread his arms, blocking the exit. "Do what they say," he said calmly. For a split second, no one moved. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. My brain screamed, "This isn't real. This isn't happening." Then Ryan moved. Fast. He slammed his shoulder into the smiling guy at the door, shoving him back with a grunt. "Run!" he shouted. I didn't think. I bolted. Chris was right behind me. Heavy footsteps pounded after us, voices shouting, "Grab them!" We sprinted down the hallway, hearts hammering, lungs burning. We burst back through the gray door into the blinding brightness of the store. Shoppers stared as we tore past. 3 panicked kids running for their lives. We didn't stop until we were outside, into the humid Kentucky heat, diving into Ryan's car. He slammed the keys into the ignition, tires squealing as we peeled out of the lot. 10 minutes later, we were parked at a gas station, all 3 of us shaking. Ryan gripped the steering wheel so hard his knuckles went white. Chris's hands trembled so badly he dropped his water bottle twice. "What the hell was that?" I finally croaked. No one had an answer. We didn't go to the police. We didn't tell our parents. We didn't tell anyone. It sounded insane, like something out of a bad movie, and I think we were scared of what might happen if we talked. But I still think about it. The smell of that hallway, the way those men looked at us, the calm voice telling us to do what they said. And every time someone mentions how good Costco pizza is, my stomach knots, because I know what's behind those doors. Story 8, I never thought something as ordinary as a grocery run could unravel into one of the most terrifying experiences of my life. I'm not someone who courts danger. I grew up in quiet suburbs outside Columbus, Ohio, Maplewood, a neighborhood where the most scandalous thing that ever happened was a kid spray painting the high school mascot statue. My parents still live in the same house with the same red shutters. People wave to each other there. You can't even sneak out as a teenager without someone's mom spotting you. That kind of upbringing does something to you. It builds this sense that bad things are distant, reserved for news headlines or urban legends. Not for people like me. Not in safe places like Costco, for God's sake. But last month proved me wrong. I work at a small marketing firm in downtown Columbus. It's not glamorous, PowerPoints, endless emails, managing accounts for local businesses. It pays the bills. Most weeks, the worst part of my job is how drained I feel by the end of the day. That Friday was worse than usual. We'd had back-to-back meetings with a client who couldn't decide what shade of blue he wanted for his logo. By the time I wrapped up, my brain felt like chewed gum. I left the office close to 7 p.m., way later than I usually do. Everyone else had already gone. The building lights hummed overhead as I packed my laptop, the windows outside darkening by the minute. My plan had been to head straight home to my apartment in Worthington, heat up leftovers, and collapse. But when I opened the fridge that morning, it had been almost laughably bare. Half a jar of salsa, 2 eggs, and expired oat milk. I told myself I'd stop at Costco on the way back. Quick in and out. Bread, eggs, milk, frozen dinners. The sun had dipped into that strange twilight when I pulled into the Costco lot. The sky was streaked with dusty pink and purple. Clouds stretched thin like pulled cotton. Families were already leaving. Parents wrangling kids, pushing overloaded carts toward minivans. The closer spaces were packed, so I had to park farther back, near a patch where the lights didn't quite reach. Shadows pooled between cars like spilled ink. I muttered to myself, should have left work earlier. Now I'm parking in the damn woods. I grabbed a cart and went inside. The blast of fluorescent light always hits like a camera flash. The air smelled of rotisserie chicken and bulk detergent. Costco has this low hum, carts clanking, PA announcements, people chatting. It's almost comforting in its normalcy. My list was short. Bread, milk, eggs, frozen meals, shampoo. I never let myself run out. My hair is thick, and bad shampoo days feel like disasters. I let myself relax as I pushed the cart. Something about the routine of shopping, the rhythm of picking things off shelves, comparing prices, dodging other carts, it grounds me. I even stopped for a free sample of cheesecake. The woman handing them out smiled. Better hurry, hun. Closing in 20. I checked my phone. 7:39. Plenty of time. By 7:55, I was in line. The store was nearly empty. Just a tired mom with a screaming toddler, an older couple debating wine, and me. I paid, smiled politely at the cashier, and headed out with my heavy cart. The second I stepped outside, the atmosphere changed. The sun was gone. The lot was bathed in that eerie blue-gray that settles before full dark. The few lampposts cast weak circles of light, but wide patches lay in shadow. Many cars were gone now. My breath clouded in the colder night air. I pushed the cart toward my Honda Civic. It sat in one of the farthest rows, swallowed in shadow. My shoes squeaked faintly on the asphalt. I tried to hurry, my pulse ticking faster with every step. When I reached the car, I popped the trunk and began loading bags. Bread, eggs, milk. The shampoo bottle clinked against a jar of pasta sauce. I moved fast. That's when I heard it. Breathing. Not mine. Behind me. Excuse me. The voice was soft, close enough that the vibration shot down my spine. I turned slowly. A man stood less than 6 feet away. Mid-40s, maybe older. His hair was slicked back with greasy strands clinging to his forehead. His skin looked pale, sallow, with deep grooves etched around his mouth. A gray t-shirt stained across the chest. Jeans faded nearly white at the knees. But it was his eyes that froze me. Dark, sunken, darting. Fixated on me in a way that felt wrong. Invasive. He said, "You got jumper cables?" Relief flickered for half a second. Maybe he was just stranded, but his posture killed that hope. He stood too close, angled like he could block me if I tried to move. His tone wasn't desperate like someone stranded. It was casual, too casual. I forced a polite smile. "No, sorry, don't have any." He tilted his head, eyes narrowing. "You sure? You look like the type who keeps things organized. Maybe check your car." That line hit me like a punch. You look like the type who keeps things organized. Who says that to a stranger? I shook my head quickly. Pretty sure. Sorry. I turned back, hands trembling as I shoved groceries into the trunk. My heart banged against my ribs. He moved closer. I caught the sour reek of sweat and cigarettes. "What's that smell?" he asked, voice dropping lower. My throat tightened. "What?" He leaned closer, so close I felt his breath stir my hair. "Your shampoo." He inhaled deeply, audibly, like a dog sniffing. "Smells amazing." Every nerve in my body screamed. I spun around, cart rattling, my voice cracking. "What the hell are you doing?" He grinned, teeth yellowed under the dim light. "Didn't want to pry," he said slowly. "But damn, smells nice." I clutched my keys so hard they bit into my palm. Then he asked, "They sell underwear in there, right? Why don't you show me the kind you're wearing? My wife's about your size." My vision tunneled. My stomach dropped to ice. I slammed the trunk, dove into the driver's seat, and hit the lock button twice. My breaths came in ragged gasps as I jammed the key into the ignition. Through the windshield, he stood grinning. Then he walked away. Not toward the store, not out of the lot. Toward a dark blue Honda parked 2 rows back. When I pulled out, my heart hammering, he pulled out too. At first, I told myself it was coincidence. But every turn I took out of the lot, his headlights followed. My hands shook on the wheel. "Don't panic," I whispered. "Don't lead him home." I turned left, away from my apartment. His headlights swung behind me. I cut through residential streets, turning sharp rights and lefts. Every time he mirrored me, not too close, not too far, like a predator stalking prey. I fumbled for my phone, dialed 911. No service. Dead zone. My breath came in sharp gasps. He was playing with me. Every time I sped, he sped. Every time I slowed, he slowed. A sick game. Then I remembered the police station near downtown, 2 miles away. I floored it. Tires screeched. I blew through a red light. Horns blared. The Honda swerved through traffic, sticking to me like glue. Streetlights flashed overhead like strobe lights. My pulse thundered in my ears. Finally, the glowing blue sign appeared. Police. I swerved hard into the driveway, brakes screaming. My car jolted to a stop so sharp the seatbelt cut into my chest. I looked back. The blue Honda slowed at the entrance. Brake lights glowed. For 1 6 second, I thought he'd follow. But then he turned down a side street and vanished into the dark. I sat gripping the wheel until my hands cramped. My whole body shook. It took everything in me to stumble inside the station. A uniformed officer at the desk looked up. "Ma'am, are you okay?" My voice broke. He followed me. From Costco. They sat me down, gave me water. My hands left damp prints on the cup. I told them everything. His greasy hair, his sunken eyes, the way he sniffed my hair, the words about underwear. They took my statement, pulled Costco security footage. 2 days later, they called. They'd found him. Registered sex offender, recently released on parole. Multiple priors, stalking, harassment, indecent exposure. He wasn't supposed to be within 5 miles of that store. The officer said, "You're lucky. It could have ended much worse." But I didn't feel lucky, because now, every night when I leave work, I check over my shoulder. I scan every mirror. Every headlight in my rear view makes my throat tighten. And some nights, when my apartment is too quiet, I swear I can smell it again. That rancid mix of sweat and cigarettes, clinging to the dark like a curse. I haven't gone back to Costco since. Maybe I never will. Story 9. I never thought something as ordinary as a grocery run could scar me for life. Back then, Costco trips were part of my weekly rhythm, the kind of errand so dull, you never imagine anything bad could come from it. My name is Laura Mitchell, and at the time this happened, I was 35, a mother of two, and living in Rochester, Minnesota. My husband Daniel worked long shifts at a local hospital. Between his hours and the chaos of raising kids, I often found myself running errands alone after bedtime. It was convenient. At least that's what I told myself. A quiet store, empty aisles, no small hands grabbing candy or whining for toys. Just me, my list, and the hum of refrigerators. But looking back, that quiet was a trap. That night in early November started off like any other. Dinner was messy. My 6-year-old Evan refused vegetables again, and my 9-year-old Chloe kept trying to sneak her tablet under the table. Daniel texted halfway through saying he wouldn't be home until after midnight. "Don't wait up," he wrote. "Love you." I sighed, cleared plates, tucked the kids into bed, and sat for a moment in the silence of the living room. The house always felt too big when Daniel wasn't home, so I busied myself. I glanced at the half-empty fridge and the sticky note on the counter with scribbled reminders. Milk, yogurt, snacks for school, dog food, laundry detergent. It wasn't a huge list, but we were out of essentials. I debated waiting until morning, but I hated shopping with kids in tow. Besides, Costco closed at 9:30 p.m., and it was only a little after 8. "Better now than tomorrow," I muttered, grabbing my keys and reusable bags. Before leaving, I peeked into the kids' room. Both were asleep, breathing soft and even. I locked the door, set the alarm, and stepped into the brisk November air. The Costco lot was almost deserted. Streetlights buzzed overhead, casting pools of pale yellow across rows of empty spaces. My minivan looked lonely as I pulled into a spot near the middle, under a light that flickered weakly. I sat for a second, engine off, scrolling my phone to check if Daniel had texted again. Nothing. Just a reminder from my grocery app. "Don't forget eggs." "Right," I whispered, grabbing my bags. The night was cold enough that my breath clouded in front of me as I crossed the asphalt. The vast building loomed, fluorescent lights glowing through glass doors. Only a handful of cars dotted the lot. Employees, maybe a couple late shoppers like me. I pushed the thought of the emptiness away. Quiet was good. Easy in, easy out. The sliding doors opened with a whoosh, and warm air met my face. Inside, the store was exactly as expected. Bright, polished, smelling faintly of rotisserie chicken and industrial cleaner. A greeter in a red vest nodded as I flashed my membership card. "Evening," he said. "Evening," I replied with a smile. I grabbed a cart, its wheels rattling faintly, and started with produce. Apples, bananas, a bag of spinach. I texted Daniel again. "Do we need eggs too?" No reply. The store was quiet enough that my footsteps echoed. The background music, some old pop song, played faintly, almost lost beneath the steady hum of refrigeration. I didn't mind. This was my kind of peace. Or at least, it used to be. I was in the snack aisle when I caught it. Movement. Just the edge of something. A shadow slipping out of sight near the far end. I glanced up, expecting an employee restocking. But there was no one. Just towering stacks of boxes. "Don't be jumpy," I whispered. "You're fine." I pushed my cart forward, tossing in a box of granola bars. But when I glanced back, I froze. A man was crouched low behind a crate. Only the brim of his baseball cap and the top half of his face showed. His eyes were fixed on me. My stomach lurched. I forced a tight smile, pretending I hadn't noticed, and pushed my cart faster. Maybe he was just messing around. Maybe an employee on break. Maybe. But something about the stillness of him, the way he didn't move even when I looked straight at him, dug under my skin. 15 minutes later, I was near frozen foods, cart almost full. I'd shaken off the unease, convinced myself it was nothing, until I saw him again. Same cap, same crouch, different aisle. This time his eyes weren't just watching, they were locked, wide, unblinking. My throat went dry. I clutched the cart handle so tight my knuckles ached. "He's just shopping," I tried to tell myself. But his cart was empty. His hands were empty. And he wasn't browsing. He was watching. I quickened my pace, sneakers squeaking against the glossy floor. When I risked a glance back, he was there again. Closer now, walking slowly, deliberately, 10 feet behind. His expression blank, chilling. "Excuse me," I croaked, but no one was around. I thought about shouting, about running, but my body wouldn't move fast enough. My pulse thundered in my ears. Then suddenly he stopped. Without a word, he turned sharply and bolted down another aisle, disappearing. Relief rushed through me, shaky and thin. But it shattered seconds later when I heard it. A thud, a grunt, the sound of struggle. I turned and froze. At the far end of the aisle, the man was on top of someone else. A middle-aged shopper I hadn't noticed before. Fists flew, the victim thrashing to push him off. "Help!" the man on the ground gasped. Panic surged through me. My phone slipped in my trembling hands as I dialed 911. "There's a fight. Costco on West River Parkway. Please send police." A voice shouted from somewhere. "Call the cops." I abandoned my cart, legs heavy as lead, and sprinted for the exit. The whoosh of the doors gave way to freezing night air, and I didn't stop until I reached my van. Red and blue lights flooded the lot minutes later, though it felt like hours. Officers stormed inside. From where I stood, clutching my phone, I saw them drag him out. The man didn't fight, didn't shout. He just lay on the floor, calm, eyes fixed on the ceiling as if none of it mattered. Later, I learned he wasn't a shopper. He wasn't an employee. He'd wandered in from the street, muttering about demons and voices. He'd attacked the man at random. But I knew deep in my gut that if that other shopper hadn't been there, I would have been his target. For months after, I couldn't shop alone. Couldn't step inside any big store without my pulse spiking, without scanning aisles for eyes watching me. People assume the scariest part is the fight. But for me, it was the silence before. The stalking, the unblinking eyes tracking me through empty aisles. Sometimes at night, I replay it. The way he stopped, the way he turned, the way chaos erupted out of nowhere. And I wonder, if I hadn't looked back in time, if that other man hadn't been there, would I be here to tell this story? Story 10. I never imagined that a place as ordinary as a Costco would leave me with nightmares that still feel too real to shake off. People usually talk about scary encounters happening in sketchy gas stations, deserted highways, or dark alleys. But for me, it happened in a brightly lit warehouse store, surrounded by cameras, employees, and the illusion of safety. Back then, I was 22 years old, living in Spokane, Washington. Life wasn't anything glamorous. I had just finished community college and was working part-time while trying to figure out what to do next. My mom had been sick for a while, and helping out with bills meant putting my dreams of transferring to a bigger university on hold. That's how I ended up at Costco. At first, I didn't mind it. The pay was decent compared to fast food. The benefits were better than most jobs people my age had, and I liked the structure. Show up, clock in, stock shelves, help members, clock out. Repeat. Some days dragged, sure, but I worked with people I trusted, and that counted for a lot. That night, March 2nd, 2019, started off just like any other. "Morning, Sarah," called out Daniel, one of the shift leads, as I walked through the automatic doors into the freezing warehouse air. "Afternoon," I corrected him with a smirk. My shift started at 1 p.m., which always felt like this awkward middle ground between morning and evening. "Fair point." He sipped from his giant tumbler of coffee. "You're on dry goods again?" "Yeah, aisles 11 through 15. "Lucky, I'm in frozen." He pretended to shiver dramatically before heading toward the back. I laughed, then swiped my badge at the clock. My hoodie barely kept out the draft near the entrance. But once you started moving pallets and lifting boxes, you warmed up quickly. The first half of the shift was uneventful. Families wandered the aisles, kids begged for samples, couples argued quietly over whether they really needed a 24-pack of muffins. Same old scene. Around 5 o'clock, I sat in the break room scrolling through my phone. Daniel and another coworker, Leah, were talking about the latest Netflix documentary, some crime series. I half listened while eating a granola bar, then went back out on the floor. That's when I noticed him. At first, it didn't register as strange. My eyes just happened to drift upward toward the mezzanine, this narrow, restricted catwalk above the registers that led to the manager's offices. Someone was standing there, not in uniform, not in business casual. Just a black hoodie and jeans. His hands were gripping the railing, knuckles pale as he scanned the store below. I frowned. We didn't have visitors up there, ever. It was badge access only. At first I thought maybe it was a vendor or someone from maintenance, but something about the way he moved, or didn't move, felt off. He wasn't chatting with anyone. He wasn't on a phone. He was just watching. I tried to shrug it off, but my stomach nodded anyway. I stocked another shelf, all the while glancing up. He hadn't moved an inch. Finally, I decided to say something. I headed toward the employee staircase at the far corner of the store. A chain hung across the bottom with a sign that read, "Employees Only." As I started climbing, the man jerked upright and turned. He moved fast toward the office door, like a kid caught sneaking candy. "Hey!" I called out. "You're not supposed to be up here." He yanked at the handle, locked. That's when he turned, and I finally saw his face. Sharp features, pale skin. His lips pulled into a strange half-smile that never touched his eyes. Those eyes, unblinking, cold, studying me. "Sorry," he said flatly. "Got lost." "Lost up here?" I raised my eyebrows. "This is staff only. You need to go back downstairs." He tilted his head, almost like he was rehearsing how to seem harmless, then brushed past me. His shoulder nearly grazed mine as he walked down the stairs. When we hit the floor, he vanished into one of the aisles before I could figure out where he went. I stood there for a moment, pulse racing. Then I shook it off. People wandered into the wrong places all the time, right? Right. Costco closed at 8:30 sharp. By 8:40, the last customers were out, and the big glass doors locked. That left about 18 employees, a few cashiers finishing tills, floor workers like me, and a couple supervisors. I was reorganizing cereal boxes when it happened. Two screams, sharp, panicked, female, split the air. I dropped my box cutter and ran toward the sound, heart hammering. It came from the clothing section. When I arrived, I saw Leah and another coworker, Madison, standing by one of those waist-high bins of folded jeans. Leah's face was white as paper. "What happened?" I asked, breathless. Leah's hands shook as she pointed at the bin. "He was in there," she whispered. "He climbed out of it." And then, as if on cue, I saw him. The same man. The hoodie. The eyes. Standing 10 feet away. Denim lint clinging to his clothes. His expression twisted. Then he bolted. "Call the cops!" Madison screamed. "I grabbed my radio. Daniel, call 911, now! We've got a trespasser!" The man sprinted toward the back of the warehouse, weaving between towering pallets. My stomach dropped. He'd been here the whole time. Hiding, but why? The next 15 minutes stretched into eternity. We split up. A terrible idea, but fear makes you stupid. Some of us blocked exits. Others tried to keep eyes on him. The store felt alien. The bright fluorescent lights that usually made me feel safe now made me feel exposed, like he could see us, but we couldn't see him. Every sound made me jump. The crash of a box, the hum of refrigeration units, even the squeak of my sneakers on concrete. Then we heard it, pounding footsteps. He darted past the end of an aisle, wild-eyed, desperate. "Stop!" Daniel yelled from somewhere behind him, but the man didn't slow down. He wasn't stealing. He wasn't shouting threats. He was just running, hiding, watching. That was somehow worse. Police arrived about 15 minutes later. Lights flashing outside the locked doors. They swept the building with us row by row, freezer by freezer. Finally, they found him, crouched inside one of the giant rolling carts used for bulk paper goods. Cardboard flattened over the top like a makeshift lid. When they dragged him out, he didn't fight, didn't yell. He just stared blankly, eyes too wide, mouth twitching like he was trying to remember how to smile. They cuffed him and walked him out past us. I wrapped my arms around myself, trembling. Later, one of the officers told Daniel something that made my stomach turn. He doesn't have a membership card, says he just wanted to stay inside after closing. That was it. No explanation. No reason. Just wanted to stay. I went home that night and sat on my bed for hours, hoodie still on hands, still trembling. I kept replaying it in my head. His face, his voice, his eyes. What had he really been planning? Waiting for us to leave so he could take something? Or waiting for us to leave so he could do something worse? I'll never know. But to this day, whenever I walk into a warehouse store, my eyes immediately scan the upper levels, the clothing bins, the empty pallets. Because I know now what I didn't, then people like him don't need a reason. They just need a place to hide.